Welcome everyone to this year's Teacher-Scientist Pairing scheme. This is the live co-taught lesson. There were quite a few contributors this year. We have some of the organizers here listed at the bottom, and then we have 3 different scientist-teacher pairs. We have 2 pairs working on recorded teaching videos, and then we have 1 pair doing the live co-teaching, which we'll hear in just a minute. Before we get into the lesson, I just want to provide a little bit of a background and context for this whole scheme. This whole approach is based on paired teaching pedagogy. What we have here is a video teacher, a scientist in our case, joining an in-class teacher and their students. A typical lesson contains 4 to 6 segments taught by the video teacher, the scientist. And each of those segments is followed by a live active learning segment that is guided by the teacher in class and tackled by the students. This is fairly unique in that it is not tied to a curriculum. The classroom activities are designed to be challenging and creative, and it is something that engages the scientist, teacher, and students. My name is Sebastian Mutz. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Glasgow, and I will be coordinating this event today, this lesson on extreme climate events and how to prepare for disaster. But much more importantly, we have our 2 stars here on the left-hand side. We have Ronan McAdam, who is a scientist at the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change, but he'll introduce himself in just a minute. And then, of course, we have our teacher, Maria Zambrotta, and all of her students in Turin. So, just to give you some idea of the structure this lesson will follow, we are starting off with Ronan, who gives us a quick introduction to weather, climate, and extreme events, and then we quickly transition into our first activity, which are conducted by the students and guided by Maria in class in Turin. And then we'll switch back to Ronan, who is currently here at the EGU General Assembly 2025 in Vienna. And this way we'll switch back and forth between these segments and these activities until we reach the end of the lesson. So, without wasting any more time, I'll hand over to Ronan.
Hello everyone, it's great to be here today joining you in Turin from here in Vienna in Austria. My name is Ronan McAdam. As Sebastian said, I'm a research scientist. I work at the CMCC, which stands for the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. It's a research foundation based in Italy. It has offices across Italy, from Venice to Milan, down to Lecce. And we work on all sorts of aspects of climate change in Italy and across the world. And my area of research is on extreme events. So today I'd like to talk to you about extreme climate events, preparing for disaster. But we have to begin with definitions of the key words that we'll be talking about today: weather, climate, and extreme events. So weather, what's that? It's the short-term conditions which can change rapidly from day to day. Things like wind, snow, rain. You can see an example of snow in a city center somewhere in Europe, something that might happen a few days every year. On the right, we see climate. Climate is defined as the average conditions, the typical weather occurring over a long period, for example, 30 years. In the picture, you can see the Arctic Ocean. So this is an area where snow is very frequent and temperatures are very often in the winter below 0 degrees. So somewhere like Turin, snow would be considered weather, and somewhere like the Arctic, snow would be less rare and more common, and therefore it would be part of the climate. When you consider the two together, we can come up with a definition for extreme events. These are events which are very different to the typical conditions, such as extreme temperatures, heat waves. And these extremes, they change as the climate is changing. For example, the heat waves are becoming more common as the world in general warms because of global warming. So our first activity now is to see what you, the students, know about these extreme events. So we begin with the first question. What extreme events have you, the students, heard of? And here we see the words that are bigger, the words that have been chosen more frequently by the students. So you're more familiar with floods, and interestingly, earthquakes and tsunamis. I will say quickly about tsunamis and earthquakes is they're not considered weather or extreme events that are strongly linked to climate change, if linked at all. They are natural disasters which occur for other reasons. Earthquakes to do with the motion of the Earth's plate, tsunamis also. But around those words, we see that the students have picked, well, a good representation of all the extreme events that exist in the world. Things like heat waves or hurricanes. And some of you have named particular hurricanes, those which perhaps have made the news because they've been particularly devastating, like Katrina. We see hailstorms. We see, again, flooding again, heavy hail, monsoon, and heavy rains. So everything from warm temperatures to lots of rain, and even a lack of rain, drought, can be considered extreme. So it seems that the students already have, perhaps unfortunately, a good idea of what extreme events are, because these extreme events bring about a lot of damages. The next question was, how often do they occur? So for each event that the student picked, they were asked, how often do they occur? Is it every year? Is it every 2 to 5 years? Or is it even rarer? Is it every 10 years? And it seems that most of the events that the students know about are very frequent. They occur every year, if not more. And very few are considered rare, every 10 years or so, which is, again, I think, bad news, because they are extreme events. And even though they are extreme, they are not necessarily rare anymore. Now we move to a particular extreme event, heat waves, extreme temperatures, and ask who is most at risk. So you, the students, have given some very interesting answers here. I see elderly people come up a lot, and that's true. They are an age group most at risk to extreme temperatures. I see, very interestingly, people who live near the equator. And it is true that as you go towards the equator, the temperature in general, the climate, the temperatures are higher and the climate is warmer. So it is true that the maximum temperatures you can experience there are very high. But it's also true that the people who live in these areas are used to high temperatures. They have adapted in time. So it's not necessarily more dangerous for heat waves. Somewhere like Scandinavia or far in the north near the Arctic, if there are extreme temperatures there, they can be very abnormal and very dangerous, even if they are relatively low temperatures for people who live in Spain or Italy, for example. Some people have mentioned not just types of people, but also parts of the environment, like forests. And indeed, forests are particularly at risk during heat waves because of fires. And finally, someone has mentioned everyone who has a medical problem. And that is true, that if you have an existing condition, extra stress, like high temperatures, can make your conditions even worse or create new illnesses. So I think we've seen a very complete response to all these questions. It seems you, the students, have a very good idea of what these extreme events are, when they happen, and who exactly they impact. So very well done on that. Now we're going to look at a few examples of other extreme events, some of which have been mentioned already. And we begin with a massive one. Massive in the sense that to see it completely, you have to be in outer space. You have to be looking from a satellite picture. This is Hurricane Katrina, which hit the USA in 2004. While the hurricane itself lasted 7 days, 2 to 3 of which were over land, over the cities, there was up to 8 weeks of flooding after the hurricane. So the duration of the impacts can be longer than the duration of the event itself. Here we see a picture of the impacts of the 2-year-long drought in Somalia in 2012. We have here, unfortunately, farm animals which, not having enough water, have died, and this had a big impact on the people living in the region not having enough food, and not only can it lead to a deadly event for the farm animals, but unfortunately, due to starvation, also to the local population. And this, unfortunately, was a very long event. More recently, we have quite an amazing picture here of the floods in Valencia in Spain in 2024. Usually when there's flooding, the waters carry rubbish and debris and maybe trees throughout fields and city centres. In this case, the water was so deep, the current so powerful, that cars were carried along and piled on top of each other in areas, very built up areas. So the damage caused was remarkable. And finally, we have the wildfire in Los Angeles in America in 2024. This was particularly famous, I think, and reported widely in the media because it was very much inside the city. It was in a residential area, and it lasted from the beginning of the first fire to the end of the final one whole month of burning around residential areas with huge damage done to people's homes across the city. And now we move to the local area. We look at Turin and the region of Piemonte in the northwest of Italy. And I'm glad to say you, the students, have prepared a presentation on your experiences of extreme events, photos, personal experience of these events in your area. So I think now we will pass over to Maria and the students to present their experiences of extreme events.
So, can I start?
Please.
Okay. So, we decided to focus our research in the most recent years. I would like to start from the stories of our parents. So do I? I'm sorry. Okay. The first extreme event that we decided to incorporate in our presentation happened in 1994. A severe flood that happened in Alexandria that destroyed a lot of the infrastructure and the buildings present in the city and the province. Next, 3 years later, I'm sorry, still in the 1994, in the province of Cuneo and Asti, the local river, the Tanaro, flooded the land, the basements of the building, substantially destroying them. Continuing, 3 years later, in summer, a drought struck the land, destroying a lot of the agricultural sector of Piedmont. And here you can see the image of this effect. Continuing in the year 2000, the Po River, which is the river that passes through the whole north of Italy, flooded the regions nearby this river. Turin, which is the main city of this region, got flooded near the river, and it disrupted the roads, and also some shops were destroyed. Continuing 2 years later, another flood struck our region. In particular, with this flood, also destroyed this bridge, collapsing the soil one of the main part that keep the bridge up. The year after, a hailstorm struck Turin, destroying cars, windows, frozen the roads. In 2007, another prolonged one, created a shortage of water and created other problems for the agricultural sector. In 2008, Biella and Vercelli also were flooded by heavy rains. Unfortunately, we couldn't find a photo of this event. In 2011, Alessandria and Cuneo suffered heavy rain that flooded roads and basements. And in 2015, we had the most hot month in Turin since 1753. From here, we will be talking about the most recent years. And looking back at the past years, we can see a rising trend. The rate and the power of this event has increased during the years. In 2016, a flood also caused by the Po flooded the nearby parts of the city, and also Cuneo was struck by the floods. The year later, in summer, we had another drop caused by the heat waves. These continuous heat waves that nowadays are unfortunately quite common. In 2019, again, Alessandria and Asti were flooded by the river passing nearby. And in 2020, the valleys near Cuneo got flooded and destroyed by the sediments, by rocks and dirt carried by the intense rain. In 2021, we had one of the most powerful heat waves we ever had here in the city. And we reached well over 40 degrees Celsius. In 2022, Biella and Vercelli were struck by even more severe rains that caused the collapse of some bridges, roads, and the disruption of basements and in general homes. Some other I'm sorry. In summer, other droughts struck this land. It is, as I said before, actually quite common nowadays. Coming to the 2 years, 2 years ago, other floods struck our region. In 2023, other heat waves hit this land, hit our provinces. Coming to the most recent years, many floods occurred in Turin, submerging cars and also taking some lives. And with this, one of the most recent things that happened 1 month ago. Hailstorm and heavy rains which struck the whole peninsula. In particular, Turin suffered extreme floods. And with this, I've ended the presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. That was a very complete record of the extreme events in the last 20, 30 years in your area. Many events I didn't know about. I must say it was presented in an excellent way. It was very clear. Both the presenter, well done, and the PowerPoint slides put together. Very accurate descriptions, very shocking pictures as well. So well done to you and to the whole class. Really very nice to see. One thing we didn't see, which is not your fault, but cold temperatures, extreme cold. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, but these days it's very rare because the temperatures, even in the winter, are continuously increasing and increasing. So some extreme events like cold spells, we see very rarely.
Yeah.
And indeed, you've shown us that droughts, heat waves, they're becoming more and more frequent.
Yeah, the last time we felt the truly cold weather was around, if I remember correctly, was around 10 years ago.
Okay.
Not even more.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not impossible. They could still happen again, but that's common. Very good. Okay. We can go on. Okay, so now I will take the opportunity to say a few words about one event that affected the whole of Europe. And we did see it in the previous presentation from the students as one of the warmest summers on record. And I think the students presented the 2015 heat wave as well. So for a long time, we scientists studied 2003 because it was the record-breaking heat wave. But in recent years, we have many more record-breaking heat waves to study. The records keep getting broken. But nonetheless, this was a terrible event. There were over 70,000 deaths across Europe, including France and Italy. It was, according to some statistics, the hottest summer since 1540. And I know in the students' presentation, there was a similar statistic, hottest summer since the 1700s. It does depend what exactly you're looking at, what temperature, where in Europe, but nonetheless, it was a very unusual event. You can see on the right this map of the number of heatwave days in the summer. So let's zoom in on Turin, for example, we can see there was about between 50 and maybe 70 days of heat wave that summer. In other areas, maybe over Russia in the eastern part of Europe, there was no heat wave. So most of the summer was considered extreme. At the same time, if you look not just over land, but also over the ocean or over the Mediterranean Sea, you can see there was even longer heat wave conditions. So we have these phenomena called marine heat waves, where the temperature of the water becomes abnormally warm. And this has a big impact on the wildlife in the ocean and also on fishing activities and aquaculture and biodiversity. So these are very important events too. In Southern Europe, the combination of heat wave and drought conditions for a very long time led to crop failure. So wheat, rice, corn, etc., there was much less harvested or produced that year, which in turn led to an increase in the prices of certain products in the supermarket. So as you can see here, this heat wave affected a very large part of our continent and also Italy. If we zoom in on Turin, we can see this is the number of heatwave days over the last 80 years. We can see a big spike in the year 2003, as we've just been talking about, and also more recently in 2022. And even in between, there were quite a large number of heatwave days in the last decade. There is a strong trend in the past decades, and the last heatwave-free summer was over 20 years ago, I think in 1999. So This is, again, another signal of climate change and how climate change affects the occurrence of these extreme events. What we're going to do now is produce the same plots, but for 5 other cities in Europe. So now the students will plot and analyze the heatwave records over these 5 other cities, try to analyze them and come up with some conclusions about them. So again, Maria, we hand over to you and the students. I think they have several minutes to plot the data, and then we will come together in about 7 or 8 minutes to see what the students have produced.
Yes, students had already had the data and are analyzing. Ronan, if you want to give to the students some questions to guide in the reflection about, so they can show you the results better.
Okay. So one thing that would be nice to see for each temperature plot, as I wrote here for Torino, when were the longest lasting heat waves? Where are the spikes? What years do they occur in? Is it 2003 everywhere? Is it 2022? Or is it another year? Or is it even earlier in the record? Is it in the 1940s, the 1950s? Also, tell me if there's a strong trend or not. This increase, which we say is due to global warming, do we see it in every city in Europe or just some? And lastly, if you can identify when the last heat wave free summer was, that would be another interesting number to look at. Is it more recently or is it a very long time ago? Does that help a bit, Maria?
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Now they have, I think, 5 minutes to reflect on the plot because they already created while you are talking. And now 5 minutes to reflect for the answers, and then can present.
Very good. Okay. Happy working.
Sì. Se individuate un trend, quali sono, se c'è un trend, quanto dura il giorno di calore, se in quali anni è presente. Tu prova a dire, poi però c'è questo punto che mi sembra un po' diverso dagli altri. E man mano che siete pronti, io proietto il vostro risultato. Sebastian, you have also the data in the drive. So if you want to share directly, is the same, or I can do for myself as you want, because you have the they are working on the drive, and so you can see their work before.
This one?
Yeah, let's try. Okay. I hope you can see this too in the classroom. So Maria, will the students present and say a few words about each city?
If I don't know if the group 1 is already pronto? Okay, is already pronto.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Okay. So, hello. Here we can see one city is Lecce, and it's in one of the most southern region of Italy. So it's more common than other cities like Turin to get heat waves during the summer. The first big heat waves that we can see is in the 1945, and we can see that the intensity is near over the 40 degrees. And then after these big heat waves, we can see not many of them, and also the intensity of the heat waves are way lower from the one that we can see after the year 2000. Even near the year 1980s, we can see almost 0 heat waves. And after the year 2000, also near the heat waves of the 2003, we can record another big heat waves. And after, we can see a lot of heat waves. So it has increased the frequency of them. And the most important one is in the latest year that we have recorded, so 2022, and it's over the 50 grade Celsius. And this is all about these cities.
Very good, thank you. Lecce is a very interesting example because of all these heat waves in the early part of the record, like you said, 1940s, 1950s. I don't know if any researchers or scientists understand why or have looked into why. So if anyone in the classroom wants to become a researcher, there is still something to be discovered about the heat waves in Lecce. Thank you. We can go to the next group now. We have London, group 2.
Good evening again.
Hello.
So here we have the graph for London, and we can't really identify a branch, at least not so evidently as before. We can see that from 1970, we have, how do we say, a more constant appearing of these heat waves. And we can also see a maximum peak during the year 1947. The last summer that didn't had no heat waves was in pretty recent, actually.
Mm-hmm.
In 2007, 2014, no, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I can say.
No, that's excellent. That's another interesting example, a place where there is not so much of a strong trend in the number of heat waves, but there's been fairly constant throughout the years. In fact, it's very interesting that the biggest spike was in around 1950. So thank you very much. Thank you for group 2 on London. Very nice example. We must move on, I think, to Milan, group 3.
Milan?
Hello.
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 We have the graphic of the city of Milan, one of the most important in Italy. And we notice that in 2003 there was a longest heat waves that lasted 62 days. While in the years before, it was not particularly lasting, while since 2003, it has shown more frequency.
Yes, absolutely. This is, I think, a nice example of an area where there is a strong trend. And you're right to point out 2003 as the most important event, let's say. And I think you mentioned the word variability, which is very important because each year is very different to the previous one. And because it changes so much every year, it makes it very hard to predict these events sometimes. So thank you very much for this nice example of Milan. Now we are moving far away from Italy. We go to Moscow.
Well,
Group 4.
we have Moscow, the capital of Russia. The longest lasting days with the longest lasting heat waves in summer are in 2010 and 2014. The last summer without any heat waves was in 2015, and we have a trend. It's very constant, the days of the heat waves, but it has up and downs in the years which heat waves occurred.
Yes, very good. Very good. The 2010 event in Russia was very long and also very, very big. It covered a very large area in Russia and parts of Eastern Europe, and was unfortunately very fatal event, like the 2003 event in Europe. So this is a very important area to study for heat waves. And as you say, there is quite a constant trend along the whole period. So well done, good analysis for Moscow. Well done, Group 4. We move on to the last group, number 5, for Paris. Hello.
We are the 5th group, and we analyze Paris data. This graph shows the number of summer heatwaves days from 1940 to 2022. And the data illustrate a significant increase in heatwave days over the decades, especially after 2000. But the longest lasting heatwaves were in 1989, reaching more than 20 days. But even more in 2022, we recorded more than 30 days of heatwaves. And in the last years, from 2018, we can see that there is a constant increasing of the number of heatwaves days that were not more than 36 days. And in 2022, like a growing the peak of the temperature, the growing impact highlight this data.
Very good. Sorry for interrupting you with my coughing, losing my voice. But this was a very interesting event as well, a very interesting city. Sorry, again. As you say, it's very interesting about the last year, in 2022, a really enormous jump in the number of heatwave days, and a very recent trend. So well done, Group 5. Well done, Paris. Okay, so I will say 2 things quickly about the temperature records we've seen, the heatwave records. One is that Turin and Milan, even though they're very close, do have different records. So the differences can be very local. In Paris in 2003, even though many people died, there wasn't a long heat wave, but the heat wave that there was very, very intense, very hot. So sometimes it doesn't have to be long to be dangerous. And as we saw earlier, there are some interesting events in the 1940s and 1950s, for example, in London and Lecce. So finally, we have the final activity, preparing for extreme events. Here, we will split into 3 groups. Each group will pick a different role play example, and they have to answer a range of questions. First of all, what are the effects of this extreme event listed? Do they hurt people? Do they cost money? Do they cause trouble to cities, etc.? What are the effects? 3, based on that, how can you prepare for these events? What can be done in the time given? And finally, you put that all together and make a plan of action to prepare for the extreme event. And the 3 examples are here. First of all, we have the school principal who, on Sunday evening, is told that there will be heavy snow on Monday. So it would be very difficult to move around the city, difficult for people to get to school. What does he have to prepare for? What does he have to think about? Who does he have to talk to, he or she, in order to prepare for the heavy snow on Monday? Secondly, we have the mayor of Turin. He is told, he or she, at the beginning of August, that the day of Ferragosto, which is the 15th of August, could be the hottest day on record. Now, for those who live in Italy, Ferragosto is a holiday, it's a party day. Everyone goes to the beach or has barbecues. There's a lot of activity. What can the mayor do 2 weeks in advance to prepare the city? And finally, we have the farmer in the countryside of Piemonte. In January, they are told that there will be drought conditions that begin in the spring, so in March and April. What can they do to prepare their fields, their crops, their farm animals, to prepare for the lack of water coming in the next few months? So now I think the students will work on shared documents online, have a think about their plan of action. You have a bit less than 10 minutes, and then at the end we will present. Okay, Maria?
Okay. Now they can start to work. Rifate i gruppi. Quindi Paone, Coraglia, Martone, Ruoppo, Serretto, Di Mario, Mirabelli, Mirabelli, Sebastian, Ronan, Sebastian is in the previous activities. You have the document, so you can share directly the document.
Okay.
Io sta preparando tutti i campi.
We are ready. The first group is ready.
Okay. So I will go to the first group, the document. I hope you can see.
Hello.
Is on the principal of the school. Hello.
Hello. So, as the principal of a school, we have received this warning. So what are we doing? We can stop the circulation, so let people stay at home, and advise them on using computers, using technology, advise them of the danger that is incoming. Then we could interrupting the snow by sprinkling salt all over the sidewalk and the street to prevent snow from forming. And maybe if the snow is too heavy, we can interrupt the lesson and let people go back home. And also maybe teach online as well.
Very good. Very good plan.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. I think it's a plan that makes sure that people around the school are safe by putting salt on the floor and trying to continue the activities of the school, the teaching, by doing online lessons. So I think you've really thought very nicely about the many different things that a principal has to decide. Well done. We move on to the second group now, the mayor.
Okay.
Hi again.
Hello.
So, if Ferragosto is the hottest day ever, it can be very dangerous. Affect people may get sick from the heat, especially old people and children. Beside hospital can become too full. and there might be power cuts and fires could start in dry areas. However, to get ready, the city must act fast. For example, we can tell people how to stay safe, open cool places for them to rest, give water and funds to those who need help, so the elderly, for example, and make sure doctor and emergency workers are ready. Last thing that I would say, the plan is to inform everyone and the most at-risk people, work with the hospital and power companies and stop fires before they start. And this action can keep the city safe for us.
Very nice. A very complete
Thanks.
plan, I think, for the hot days. You mentioned different services and people that can be impacted. I really liked the emphasis on acting fast and communicating. Very difficult, but you have to make sure everyone knows in time. And very interesting that you spoke about the hospitals and power companies in particular, because they are particularly affected by the temperatures. Well done. And the final group, group 3, will tell us about what the farmer in the countryside of Piemonte should do for the drought.
Hi. So, hello. We are taking the point of view of a farmer. So, one of the main effects of drought is the reduction of water availability that leads to an economic loss from reduced harvest, but also soil degradation and increasing water need for the irrigation system. A farmer can prepare for an eventual drought, storing water where possible, obviously, and optimizing irrigation system, and he may plant vegetables or fruit that can resist without much water. The plan of action could be split in different months from January to March. He may inspect and fix the irrigation system and look for drought-resistant seeds.
Very nice. Thank you. That's a very detailed response.
Thank you.
Talking about optimizing irrigation systems or changing the vegetables or the fruit that they plant. And it's very interesting that you mention how the plan may be split into different parts because there is more time, perhaps, to prepare for a drought, which can be used in our favor. It gives the farmers a chance to continue their activities without being affected too much. A very, very impressive plan. Thank you very much. Now, I think we come to an end. I will, to finish, summarize a bit what we have learned today. So, extreme events have different durations, impacts, and probabilities. We looked at one in particular in detail, the 2003 European heatwave, which affected human life, food production, and the economy. And then the students also showed us a very nice presentation on the last 30 years of extreme events in Turin and the region.
Sorry.
Yes.
We can see the presentation.
Okay. Can you see our screen though?
Yes, but not the presentation, only you.
Okay. Maybe we
sorry
stopped
for that.
sharing.
Yes, we did.
Oh yeah, we stopped sharing, it seems so.
Okay, let's start again. Thank you for that.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, very important. And we also got the students to look at and try data analysis because it's crucial for understanding the history and the characteristics of extreme events. This data that the students looked at, the trends, the variability, that's crucial for predicting and preparing for these events. And as we've seen wonderful examples of today, preparing for these events requires new ways of thinking, even new technologies, and not just to be prepared in the moment, but also maybe prepared beforehand. We spoke about schools being able to teach online when there are snow days. That's not something you can prepare on a Monday morning. You have to have it planned many months or years in advance. So that brings our lesson to a close. I would like to thank the students for their excellent presentations and contributions. I was really amazed by the level of detail and and the knowledge they had of these extreme events already. So well done, everyone.
Yeah, so let me stop sharing for a minute. So if I would like to just, if anyone has maybe one or two questions for Ronan while he's still here, anything you're interested in that you want to ask a climate scientist about, you can do that. Do we have any questions?
Any question? Any question? No. Okay, right.
One small question, can I?
Yes.
It's a curiosity. What is the most powerful weather event that you know?
The most powerful?
Extreme weather event that you know of?
Oh, wow. It depends what you mean by powerful. Powerful can mean different things, I think. Maybe the most devastating extreme events in terms of human life would be what we didn't speak about today, maybe tsunamis or earthquakes, but also hurricanes, which is more of a weather event. Particularly when it comes to economic damage, like buildings being destroyed and flooding. Hurricanes, I think, are, in that sense, very powerful. Also powerful physically because of the winds that they create. Some of the fastest winds ever recorded are due to hurricanes.
And there's one specific event that you recall.
Yes, for me, in 2021 in southern Italy, I was on holiday in Sicily when it reached 48 degrees, which was the hottest recorded temperature in Europe ever. And I was on holiday there in Sicily, very uncomfortable. And we had to spend most of the days inside in the air conditioning. I was lucky, I wasn't harmed, but it was definitely an exceptional event that I will remember.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other
Is there another curious?
Yeah, another one.
Yes.
Would know which study you did where to become what you are.
Okay.
The job that you apply, yeah.
Yes, sure. So at university, I studied geophysics, which is, of course, physics of the Earth. So we learnt about volcanoes and soil and the atmosphere and the ocean. So I did an undergraduate degree and a master's in geophysics. And then I did a PhD in oceanography. So I studied the ocean for 4 years and studying the ocean currents. And then after that, I became a scientist working on, in particular, extreme events, using my training of the different knowledge of the Earth systems, the atmosphere, the land, the ocean, to study extreme events. So it required 8 years of studying at university, a long time.
Sorry, Sebastian. Can you explain us the institute where do you work? Because they are at the end of the curricula at the secondary school, and they can choose to go to the university and then to go to work and so on. So please, could you talk us about your institute?
Well, I'm currently at the University of Glasgow, and that is a university. It is where we conduct research, but we also teach students and train future scientists, not just scientists, but also people who will then apply concepts from science in the real world, in industry, or at an environmental agency. So it's quite similar in terms of the training as what Ronan just described, to be able to at some point work at a university.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. If that is all, then I would really like to thank you all and thank the students. It was a real privilege to be able to join you in your classroom, and thank you, Maria, for helping to make all of this happen. So big applause to you.
Well done. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, students. Grazie.
You're welcome. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Ronan.